One of the key changes from those old 7 principles that I'm not going to remind you about to the new 6 values with love at the center is the addition of a covenant for each value. It's all well and good previously for us to say what our core values are as principles. The addition of the 8th principle, which we voted on this congregation in past a number of years ago, was particularly driven by a reaction of Paula Cole-Jones to some congregations she worked with as a district consultant, while encouraging them to work on dismantling systems of oppression. This work came from resolutions passed at our yearly General Assembly for the Unitarian Universalist Association that's held at the end of June. Some of those congregations felt no obligation or responsibility to implement those resolutions because the 7 principles had no verbs. They expressed our values, but they didn't commit us to do anything specific to realize them. The new bylaws, which are called Article 2, has significantly changed this approach. We aren't just stating our values anymore. We're making commitments about what we will do in response to those values. I'd like to focus on a couple of these to illustrate the point. Instead of respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, which was the 7th principle, now it has been reformulated as the 1st with a little humility added. Then comes the covenant to do something, to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships with care and respect, mutuality and justice. And not only will we protect Earth from exploitation, we will also create and nurture sustainable relationships, and we will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. We will recognize, as individual and collective human beings, we have done harm. We will commit to doing something to make things better. Now that is humility in action. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations and the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, which are the former principles 2 and 5, became justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and other forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. We are making an institution-wide commitment to dismantle racism and other forms of systemic oppression. You might notice that you just heard that this is already in our mission statement as we work to end systems of racism and other oppressions. Okay, having briefly reviewed our deepened commitment as an association to action, let me now reread the Reverend Sarah Green's statement from her sermon before you voted almost unanimously to call her as your next settled minister. May we, with all of our heavy privileges, our resources, our capacities, our gifts and talents, our advantages earned and unearned, our dispensations and rights. Show up to our holy responsibilities and be stewards and active participants in any and all processes of belonging to one another through love, solidarity, liberation, and hope. I'd like to unpack this statement a little more, and illustrate how it expresses the spirit of the new Article 2 language centered in love. I appreciate how she conditions privileges with the word heavy. So often we consider privileges as in tension with equity and fairness. White privilege and white supremacy are considered, at least within these walls, a huge problem in society, a very heavy problem weighing down and potentially interfering with our ability to address systemic injustice. You might notice that Reverend Greed didn't use the language of white supremacy, although she easily could have. She said advantages earned and unearned. This is more neutral and inclusive language. White privilege and white supremacy are subsets of a larger systemic world problem called colonialism. And this is a current iteration of an ancient strategy I credit my son Andrew with tuning me into. He plays many online games, and they are all about killing your opponent and taking their stuff. Kill them and take their stuff. This is one of the evolutionary master plans since the very first predator. Thankfully, evolution has found another tool in its toolkit to support the growth and development of life that we express in Article 2 as love. Reverend Sarah calls it out in these words: show up to our holy responsibilities and be stewards and active participants in any and all processes of belonging to one another through love, solidarity, liberation, and hope. And I think this would be a good moment to take a break for a song about love. I could spend a lot of time describing how human beings miss the mark, or in traditional Abrahamic language, sin, when it comes to failing to repair harm and damaged relationships and to dismantle racism and other forms of oppression. I hope I don't get too much of an argument just saying the world would be a far better place if we followed through on these covenantal responsibilities. One place I feel that harm deeply within Unitarian Universalism is reading about the black women who have been ordained into our ministry and their struggle described in a book of essays by them titled The Rough Side of the Mountain by Kiyama Rahman. These essays chronicle how hard, lonely, and even traumatic being a black clergy woman can be. In the epilogue, the Reverend Dr. Adele Smith Penniman, one of our first black women ministers, writes, "Black clergy note how often at UU gatherings white people mix up their names and stories, indicating that too often we are noted for our race and not our unique individuals." Repeatedly, writers in this volume fear that they are mere tokens or trophies. A seminarian who was interviewed wondered, while rubbing her brown skin, Do they want me or do they want this? If you want to prevent some of these sins from happening here, you might want to look at this book. What I greatly appreciate is Reverend Sarah putting the word holy in front of the word responsibility. The heavy privileges many of us carry have a very positive side. They create a capacity to respond, often in significant and powerful ways. To respond to harm, to dismantle racism and systemic oppression requires recognition that harm exists, and one can use one's capacities to make a positive difference. This can be a painful process, but also an enlightening one. The heaviness of participating in harm, racism, and systemic oppression becomes much, much lighter when one is willing to stop, to change one's behavior, and begin ending the harm. The weight is gradually removed from one's conscience by disidentifying with being complicit. One can now identify with building a better world, building beloved community. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a lot to say about beloved community and is a primary inspiration for Unitarian Universalists to include that language in our Article 2. For him, that language was holy. Hak Jung Lee writes, King believed that all Christian mission and ministry flow from God's heart and strive toward beloved community. Hence, community constitutes the final goal of all human spiritual and moral efforts. God and human beings as persons work together to build the beloved community through their eternal companionship. God intends fellowship or community with humanity. The idea of God's personhood is important in King's theology because only a person can enter fellowship and form a community. What's crucial here for both humanists, atheists, and theists is the centrality of personhood to build community. And injustice and racism diminish personhood. Inequality diminishes our capacity for real relationships. Inequality, such as a master and slave, cannot have a real relationship. Privilege can contaminate real relationships as it creates power imbalances. It is challenging for the rich man to have a good relationship with a man experiencing deprivation. It is challenging for a beautiful young woman to have an honest relationship with a man who does not see her as a person, but primarily sees her body. It is challenging for an elected leader to have an honest relationship with a voter. What we strive to create here in this congregation is a space of mutuality, a space where people can come together without these differentials. The beloved community we long for, we long to create here, is an inclusive, interdependent, and egalitarian community that transcends race, ethnicity, gender, and class. Hak Jung Lee continues, King's idea of the beloved community envisioned a fully reconciled society, racially, socially, and economically, where enmity, bias, and alienation are removed, but love and justice prevail. and where the dignity of every person is respected and his or her potential is actualized. While this vision may seem far off, the feeling of the holy happens in the process of holding and moving toward the vision. In Reverend Sarah's words, be stewards and active participants in any and all processes of belonging to one another through love, solidarity, liberation, and hope. Lucky you. You have a partner for this work of building beloved community who knows what that might feel like and has a sense of what it doesn't feel like. She starts August 1st. In the spirit of partnership and collaboration, she can sense the direction, but not the exact next steps. Together, you will be building that partnership. For that to happen, she will need everyone's help and participation. Each person has gifts to contribute to the whole potential to be actualized here. Beloved community doesn't operate by the rules of the marketplace or the academy or social hierarchies. This congregation is a space of mutuality, a space and a place where the congregation is much more than each person. A vital congregation creates mutual benefit, a place where we can strive together for a common purpose. We are guided by 6 values and 6 commitments with love at the center. May this new ministry you are embarking upon, heavy with privilege and holy with responsibility, bring great fruit, meaning, and transformation into a world that is hungry for it, transforming it through liberating love. So be it.